Well, I remember myself when I was in my early days, and I can appreciate, I'm sure, those who are just fresh out of the workshop, it's difficult to get this habit to stick. People are so enthused and so excited. Oh, this is so good. I love it. I wouldn't want to have anything else in my head ever again. But then you stumble and fall. And how can you get GTD to stick? What advice would you have to workshop participants, post-workshop or early implementers?
Boy, I don't know. You know, I said it took me 25 years to figure out what I figured out, and probably the rest of my life to figure out how to distribute the education and get it to stick, you know, for people. You know, you're looking at 70 years of my experience with this, or since 1981 anyway, so however long that is, 34, 35 years, where I've been working this material, and I didn't get it all at once. It was like a piece at a time, a piece at a time, a piece at a time. And so it was, in a way, I kind of, you know, each one of these habits, you know, one of my jobs was managing a service station, you know, a gas station about a block off the Los Angeles freeway. And, you know, it was a big service station. We had a lot of projects, had a U-Haul rental thing that was part of it, and I was managing it. The guy who owned it was a really smart guy, and he said, David, you know, I just put you into this position, but there's one thing I ask of you. He said, when you come in early, because I came in like 7 or 7:30 in the morning and wouldn't leave till 10 at night, but he said, the first half hour you're here, get in your office, close the door, do not walk out of that office. And, you know, I was keeping track of the projects back then just on pieces of paper in a folder. These are the projects, the thing. And each project was on a piece of paper. Right? So he said, okay, what I want you to do is just don't work on any of those projects. I just want you to shuffle all those papers for 30 minutes. Then give yourself the freedom to go out the door and do whatever you feel like doing. So that habit of building in a review of all the open loop projects on a regular basis before I start to engage, that was like 3 years of managing a really funky gas station. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So that's how I developed these habits, was little piece by piece, piece by piece. I learned about a tickler file helping a guy start a travel agency. You know, we basically ran the thing with a tickler file. We came in the morning, whoever got there first just opened up whatever was supposed to happen that day was in the tickler file. We ran a business. Back then you could do most of that. That was pre-computer days. You could do most of that. So, you know, I did that for 2 years. So these things came, there was no big one epiphany. So my thing was incremental. So I understand that when you suddenly get this whole blast, trying to then install all those behaviors, you know, all at once. Because it sounds simple. God, write stuff down, decide next actions, park them in lists, look at them, keep them current, do a weekly review. It sounds pretty easy. But everybody is already up to here with what you're doing. So doing anything new or different really is much harder than most people think. There's a lot of new studies now. I was just in a conference in Eindhoven in the Netherlands about how do we build habits, especially how do you use electronic tools to have people give healthier habits. Philips, you know, was one of the sponsors of it. And so there's a lot of data going on about that now, about habit stuff. And how do we change habits? How do we understand the technique of habit? But I'm not an expert at that for sure. Practical, simple answers, get around people doing this. Get in the company of people who have these behaviors. You know, that's one thing. And come back to the well. Read the book again. I've had people read that book 19 times, and they say it's a totally different book every time they read it, because you're ready for a new cut of understanding of that material every time you do it. So anything you can do to get around the material. So we've tried to provide, hey, look, come at it this way, get around, listen to it again. It's like anything, you know, you get around it. And especially if you get around people who are good at it, then that'll be, you know, modeling is the best way to train anyway. And so getting around people who model that kind of behavior for you is probably one of the best ways to get it. You know, come back to the seminar, take it again, audit it. You know, all those things are really useful. And I guess the main thing is, you know, relax. Take one step at a time. Just keep going. Because you'll go on. Because when you put conscious focus on it to change behavior, and when you're consciously thinking about this process, yeah, you can stick with that. The problem is you then have to go live your life, so you let go of the steering wheel. See, we're all on automatic pilot about all kinds of things. So what you do is the boat's on automatic pilot, but you grab the steering wheel. And now I want to go over here and fish, right? So I'm going to turn over, and okay, now we're going over here. The problem is that you want to fish. So you let go of the wheel so you can fish. Boat goes right back to where it started before. So as soon as you let go of conscious control of it, So you want to get to the place where you're not thinking about this process, you're just doing it. Right? That's however long it takes habits. And that's why we say, as you know, the 2-minute, 2-day, 2-year paradox. It takes 2 minutes to understand this model, about 2 days to really install it, if you roll up your sleeves and really install, and then about 2 years for these basic behaviors and practices to become habitual, if you really, really focus on it. But kind of the good and bad news is you're going to get a lot of value out of any of it that you do. We'd probably have more people who were really doing it well if you didn't get any value until you really did the whole thing and did it perfectly. But the good news is that this is not running with scissors, as we say. This is anything, just the 2-minute rule. If that's all that sticks with you in your life, it'll change your life, be highly productive. So these are all highly productive behaviors and practices. Long answer to how about beats me?
Could you share the 2-minute rule?
2-minute rule. Yeah, 2-minute rule just says, look, if you decide a next action on something that you can actually complete in 2 minutes, if you're ever going to do that action at all, do it then, because it'll take you longer to track it than to do it. And you'd be amazed how many things. By the way, where you live will be a lot more efficient and effective and clean if you just use the 2-minute rule where you live. How many of you have something you keep passing, some light bulb you need to change, or replace, or something out there, and it would just take you 2 minutes to go get the thing? So just apply the 2-minute rule. Go back tonight. If you see anything that would only take you 2 minutes to put it where it belonged, or to fix it, or put the new battery in it, or what, just go do it. You'd be amazed. Anyway, that's the 2-minute rule.
Thank you. Yeah. We've got a lot of GTD practitioners here, and a question we often get asked, usually at the end of the seminar, is that once I follow GTD and I'm on top of my game, I'm afraid that the people who I work with, either above me or below me, are going to, not get back to me on time, and that's going to end up, creating drag. So, what would you recommend? What do you say GTD for teams, or how could? And it's very clear how GTD can be used for individuals, but what about teams? And what recommendations would you give to these people who have that fear that, if others don't follow GTD, it's still going to be unproductive?
Well, GTD is nothing but good business practices. You don't have to call it GTD. You don't have to go do GTD. Just keep track of your commitments. I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, what's wrong with something is people that don't keep their commitments. That's not GTD. That's life. You're going to lose trust if you don't keep a commitment, if you don't get back to me about something. So you really can't legislate system. You can hold people accountable to outcomes. And so you said you were going to. It didn't happen. That automatically denigrates trust. You don't have any. There's no workaround on that. You break an agreement, trust goes down. Period. So this is that's just good business practice. Is it good business practice to start a meeting by saying, what are we trying to accomplish by what time? You bet. Is it good business practice that when you finish a conversation in the meeting to go, so what exactly did we decide and what's the next action, yours or mine? Yes, that is GTD. That's good business. So, if your people around you are not being good business people, that's just a problem. That they either shouldn't be there or you need to change companies, if that's too frustrating to you. I understand that, but oftentimes what happens is when you start doing this stuff, it kind of happens around you. Here's an interesting principle that I discovered years ago. Who do you folks take the most expensive presents to when you go to housewarmings and parties? The people who need them the most? No.
Don't ask embarrassing questions.
No. Come on. Life is not fair, folks. If it was fair, you'd take those expensive presents to the people who need them, and they could hawk them and use the cash. Why do you take expensive presents to people who already have them? We say, well, because they've created an entry price. Say, oh, these people have really fine stuff. I guess we have to give them some more. So you feel comfortable walking in. Why do I give you that story? Because as much as you have your act together, people will feel they need to get theirs together to engage with you. You have created an entry price. You all know people that you would not go in and have a conversation or meeting with them with your act out of control. Just too obvious. So, and you can't guarantee that, but as you start to